I'm going to call to order the Democratic Caucus of November 23rd, 2020. Roll call, Ms. Gorel,
Present.
Ms. Red,
Present.
Mr. Girl, he's
Present.
here. Mr. DeSoni,
Present.
Mr. Fellers.
For the last time, present.
Not the last time you stopped in to see us. Mr. Neighbors
Present.
and Mr. Salgado, not here at this time. Okay, we don't have any minutes. I'm assuming we don't have any speakers. So let's jump right into the committees and start with finance. Bert, you want to pick that up?
Sure, Joe. So finance, we just have the FOP contract that was finalized. And that, let's see here. I got my notes. Anyways, yeah, it's about 2.25% for 3 years. There's about 1 year of retro pay in regards to the FOP contract. It was a contract that was brought together by mediation in the end. So it's a fair contract. It could have went either way, but I think it's fair, reasonable compared to what the other labor groups are getting right now. Let me pull up another thing. And then we have a worker comp case that we're going to close out. It was a hand injury to one of our sheriff deputies. And that was just over or just under 31,000. And that is it.
Any questions for Bert?
No, thank you, Bert.
I want to welcome Angela Fellers. We have another Fellers in the house. I think we had a third one there back there someplace too.
Yeah, he wanted
We
to say
got
hi to
Fellers
his dad.
everywhere.
Hi, Henry. Was that Jeffrey? Hi, Jeffrey.
It's Jeffrey.
Hi, Gary.
Ain't this meeting on Zoom? Ain't that sweet? Well, welcome aboard, Angela.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go on to Public Works, Mr. DeSoni.
No report, Mr. Chairman. We did have one item back at committee, but it was removed from the agenda until further notice.
Okay. I have a question for Bert, actually. I'm sorry. We could go back for a second.
Go ahead.
Bert, were there any other material changes to the contract other than the pay scale?
Yeah, there was one change, and that was to deal with the actual their health insurance. So the health insurance was changed. FOP paid a significant portion less than our other labor groups. So through negotiations, we brought that cost down basically to the other labor groups. So more in line with the other labor groups, FOP will pay a little bit more for health insurance this time around. Other than that, that was just about it that stuck out that I can remember.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Was the whole contract negotiated or just those portions of it?
No, the whole contract. So you start off with the language first and economics second.
Mhm.
So the language of the contract is negotiated first and then the economics. And that's usually what takes the longest is the economics portion of any kind of labor contract. So, but it went on for, year and a half, almost 2 years. So there is some retro pay that will cost us. And I think it's just under 300,000 for 2020. And then 2021, we did budget for an increase of up to 3%. So we're covered there for the next few years. But 2022, we'll have to go right back to the board and start negotiating again.
Does the contract include disciplinary and oversight procedures for members of the staff?
That would be in the language, the actual language of the contract. So I don't know, it wasn't discussed at committee meeting. That can definitely be something that we can discuss at our board meeting. But if I had to guess, I would say probably not.
Okay, and pardon me for being new because I don't know what I don't know, is the portion that we're voting to approve, is that only the economic portion of it, or are we voting to approve the contract in whole?
The whole CBA, the whole contract will be voted on by the board.
Can you please send a copy of the contract to me?
I don't have a copy of the contract.
Would you not have to ask Mr. Kurlinkus?
Mr. Kurlinkus would have that. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Just so you know, Angela, it's pretty much, I've sat on many of these negotiations. That's pretty much the routine period. Even when I worked at the county, when I was a supervisor, I had to, our contracts, they all pretty much operated the way Bert described it.
Yeah, I understand that, but as
All
someone.
right. Where
Hey,
was
quick
we
question,
at?
Joe, if you don't mind. Oh, Joe,
Huh?
we're losing Joe.
Go ahead.
Yeah, is there any indication the sheriff will
Yeah, I
try
got
to,
you, man.
won't sign this and will hold out from additional money instead? Like you did last time?
No, this was through mediation. So the next step would have been arbitrator. So typically the union members have signed this, so it's in our desk now. So
I just remember the sheriff not signing the last FOP contract because he wanted more money from us.
correct.
Oh, you mean this up for blackmail?
Yeah, no indication that that's the case.
So, the contract in and of itself, did it include anything requiring for any kind of training or anything for any kind of social justice components, cultural competence?
Again, that wasn't discussed in the finance. We just discussed the economics of the contract.
I understand. Thank you.
That would not be something the union would take care of anyway, is it? Wouldn't it be more for the sheriff's policy?
Well, a lot of disciplinary procedures and training, staffing levels, things like this are all things that are negotiated quite commonly by the union. And so when they're asking about when we're looking at things that have to do with reviews and promotions and staffing levels and training, a lot of those things are negotiated by the union with the county. And I just want to make sure that we're considering the current climate that we're in, that we're covering all of our bases, and that we're making sure that if we are approving a contract with the union, that we're doing one that is going to empower them to reach their capacity for excellence, and that they're funded appropriately for their needs, including training on cultural competence and cultural awareness.
To go along with what you're saying, Angela, I was the one sitting, we always get a county board person to go to these union meetings and negotiations. And for the last few years, it's usually been myself, or at times it was Gary Jury. Any of us that were retired ended up being the people over there. Well, once COVID hit, I had attended the first 3 or 4 meetings, and after COVID hit, I'm assuming they did it all by Zoom or something, because I was never told about the next meeting after that. So you may get a chance to go sit on some of those the next time. Ready to move on? All right, let's go to zoning. Dan?
Oh, no report. You might want to turn your video off, Joe. You're starting to drag on. There you go.
Dan, can you hear me?
Yes.
That was
Yeah,
my
no
next step.
report- no
When I see the
report
look on your
from
face, that was the next step. Okay,
Yeah,
public safety, Dorothy?
Public safety, I think we met, did we meet as a group?
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
got, we got 2 items. We got remedy of renewing lives and the Winnebago County emergency telephone system.
Oh, yeah. Academic development? You need a report on that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we will. Go ahead.
I think we have one item, if I remember correctly. It
815
is-
culinary.
Yeah, 815 Culinary is requesting $80,000 to help with their project, and it's coming before the county board tomorrow night.
May I ask what that is? I don't
Okay,
recall.
it's a program that's being set up to train people to be able to work in restaurants and get certified as food service operators and just culinary.
All right. Is this the one that Oh God, what's the forest preserve out on Montague? Are they involved in this, or is this a separate one?
No, this is a separate one. This is
Okay.
Jaria Crudup is sort of spearheading this, and they're working with the city of Rockford, who is helping them with the building. They're purchasing it. Where was that building?
The,
I
the
don't remember
Imperial
the
Palace.
exact building, but
Yeah,
it's out on East State Street someplace.
yeah, the
Yeah,
old
Imperial
Imperial
Palace.
Palace.
They're purchasing that. Yeah,
So the
to
city,
help
so
with
Angie, the city is, the city is ponying up about
house.
$400,000 in
And
TIF
they will
funding.
have a restaurant in there, you know, teach the students how to.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said, this is
Okay.
what we should
Hold on.
support, right?
Okay.
The city's putting in 400,000 to buy up the old Imperial Palace and make the kitchen commercial ready. They're going to train food service workers and chefs and frontline chefs. They'll get a certificate from one of the culinary arts schools. About 100 students through a year is what they're thinking. They're going to run a restaurant out of it. They're asking us for 40 grand for the roof and 40 grand for a commercial vent hood. So this, I think this is a good use of our funds.
Mr.
Yes.
Sisson,
Thank you, Joe. Just if anybody can answer, is this by way of host fund grant or a loan? And I'm just curious, who's the parents of the organization? Who are they? And
It is a host fee grant, and it is Jaria. I forget Jaria's last name, but they're set up. 815 Culinary is set up as a 501c3 charity. They are using a successful program out of New Orleans and are getting mentorship from a program in New Orleans that's doing the same thing. It's been very successful for the last decade. So they're kind of copying that program and getting mentorship out of that group.
and just if anybody, it seems like you know a little bit about it, Dan. I mean, like I say, I grew up in a restaurant. I love to cook, and it's one of my passions. But if you could just tell me, where will these kids come from? Are they local schools? Are they just anybody? Do they got to have? Where will
Yeah.
these kids be attracted from?
Sure. There's actually so there's sort of I guess there's quotas from a bunch of different groups. So for example, the Winnebago Housing Authority, the Rockford Housing Authority. So we each get something like 10 or 15 students apiece. There'll be some coming out of RPS 205, as well as some other groups. If you want, I can forward you the report from staff that we had in economic development. It kind of runs through all
And
that.
referrals from anyone, in the community.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Any other information anybody could give me? I appreciate it. Like I say, I'm somewhat supportive of it. I think it's a good thing. I mean, anybody learns how to cook, like I say, that's a good thing.
I'm glad to see this because my grandson, when he graduated high school, went down to Southern Illinois to a cutlery school because he didn't have money to go to Chicago to one of these great big ones, and had to go all the way down there. And this is great because it'll keep our kids here, teach them here, and we're going to need some really good future cooks. And it's good. It's good. We have some. They can come out and be nice entrepreneurs through that too.
Okay, they also have a contract or something with Embassy Suites to hire some of the students.
Very good.
I don't think they'll hire them, but I think they'll use them while they're getting educated as a place to work and do use what they learn in the restaurant and the banquet hall at Embassy Suites.
Okay.
Right.
Sounds
That was the same thing that the house was doing with that group that was out at Severson Dells.
Yeah.
They were doing.
Angie, those kids were all special ed kids at Severson Dale.
But that's, these are our students. Hopefully they're coming out of our school system or
Yes.
those who need some help. And when you're telling me it's Winnebago County Housing Authority, Rockford Housing Authority, and some of these others, it's a good idea. It's a start. It's a foot into teaching them some type of a profession.
And also Rockford Public Schools will be referring students.
5, good.
And it's actually not just students. These are, I think, actually mostly young adults aged 18 to 35. If I'm just going through the brief from from Juria on this. Dave, I just forwarded to your county email address. But these are young people aged 18 to 35 from 3 groups. Looking at their, they live in neighborhoods threatened by poverty, crime, and violence, therefore live in unsafe conditions, and made them find themselves out of school and unemployed and lacking the skills necessary to find a job. Right. So these are at risk. These are at risk adults. Right.
I believe they taught them. Did you not, Dorothy?
I'm sorry, say that again.
That you had at Roosevelt?
I did have some at risk, but some of them were younger students as well, the 17-year-olds. But I never taught the older ones. They had to be school age.
And where will this be located?
The Imperial Palace.
But, you know, they were working on their GED. So, you know, this would be the same type of.
I got a question. Did the Restoration Cafe do some of that too? What about the shelter?
Yes, they did do that. You're right. Across the street on Brockton and West State. I believe they still do that with their people that go to the shelter. You're absolutely right. At one time, we had a place like this on the corner when Stockholm Inn left the corner of Broadway and do you remember that Broadway and 20th Street?
20th Street, yeah.
They turned that into something like this, I believe. So yeah, we still need that kind of help. Thank you.
Joe and Angie, I just forwarded you the packet on that so you can take a quick peek at before the meeting tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, ready to move on?
Yep.
Okay, P&P committee, Angie?
I don't believe, let's see, yes, we do. I think we do. Hold on a minute here. I gotta find it. Yeah, we got a couple of things here. Hold on. We have a resolution authorizing the execution of a renewal agreement with Arthur Gallagher for the property casualty and workers' compensation coverage. And we passed that. And the next one was the ordinance amending sections of Chapter 62 of the County Code of Ordinance to be laid over. And number 4 was an ordinance amending sections of Chapter 2 of the County Code of Ordinance to be laid over. I believe you got those to read, did you not?
Yes.
I think you did. And you might want to ask, we passed both of these.
Yeah.
And
cleaning up language that Mr. Thompson found was contradictory, as
Right.
well as formally, I think, establishing a CFO position that reports directly to the county administrator.
right. And that was done very well. They updated that, especially the position of the COF. That was good, the way they restructured that. Good.
Any other questions? Operations. Dorothy, you want that one?
Let me check. What did we do on operations? Whew.
No, you had a committee.
Go ahead, Angie, if you want to report.
I'm not on the committee, but I'm looking at my agenda. You don't have anything going on it.
Okay, that's it.
That's it. All right. Before I got a couple other things to do, but I do want to bring up.
Hold on, Joe.
Yes.
We did kind of run through Public Safety Committee really quickly, and there was one item that we had a lot of discussion about. Just the first one is a grant renewal. That's the Renewing Lives one, but the telephone system, operation and telephone system, the conversation in committee was whether or not we're still paying those ridiculously high rates to Rockford if we don't have staffing in our 911 center. And no one could remember if that contract is actually, or that IGA is still in effect. Bert, were you there for that conversation?
I was in that conversation too. Bert was, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's something to be aware of. I think I just want to I want to make sure it doesn't get forgotten once the next term starts, that we still have an IGA with Rockford to cover our staffing shortages that charges us something like, was it 20 grand a day or something, or 20 grand a week or something ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we need to make sure that that is, and remember, if you remember from our discussions 2 years ago, when we did this, we have no control over when the sheriff enacts that. Right. So, we could start spending money on that, right away if there's some sort of shortage. So we need to, the board needs to review that IGA kind of first thing in the new term. So it doesn't come back to bite us in case, we get into another headbutting match with the sheriff's department.
I think you're right. We really need to go back and take a look at that. That was a lot of money because of the fact, if I remember correctly, when it is on, when we have the 911 calls, 911 calls could have been transferred to Belvedere. They could have been transferred anywhere that has a 911 system. Instead, we were going to be paying, and we did. If we used them just one day, we had to pay them for a whole week, and it was like 15 grand. And that would just continue on for a couple of weeks. So, yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that. We need to go back. Even before first of all, we want to get the 911 thing taken care of. But on the other hand, we still need to look into this. And did we ask Kerlinkus to look into this, Dan?
Yeah, we did. I think Mr. Thompson's on as well. I just want to make sure the caucus stays on top of it too.
Thank you.
All right. And last, we were on ops?
Yeah, we were done. It was back to you.
No report on the operations.
All right. All right. I got a couple things that I talked to Paul Arena, who's going to be the Republican caucus chair, or has already been made. He wanted me to pass on that he's setting up parliamentary training, and he has a possibility of several dates. And if you guys would write them down and tell me which one would work for you the best, we got to get just one. I got to advertise this going. Okay. No, I lost everybody. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I lost the picture. Okay, what's going to happen? It's going to be on a Saturday. He got the 5th, the 12th, and the 19th.
Of what month?
Of December. And it's going to be about 3 hours long. So I kind of need everybody to get together and kind of find out. Find out when what is best day for them and let me know. A couple things that he told me that that Paul and I were discussing was what happened in the past when we were allowing everybody to sit at the table for each meeting. You remember that?
Yep.
Okay, so I brought that up as I don't know how I lost my meeting here. I don't know how to get it back. Okay, so anyway, I brought that up and he brought that up to the person that was going to do the class and said that wasn't the way to do it, that we shouldn't have been doing that, that only the people that are on that committee should be sitting at the table. And that only makes sense to me. So hopefully we can straighten that out and don't go through all that mess again this next year. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? How did you guys feel about it? Or we shouldn't be doing it, but did you guys think that was a good thing to do?
It's a good thing to do, but I'd rather do it in January.
No, I mean, good thing to do in the meeting before we get into this.
The meeting, absolutely.
Did you guys think it was a good thing to have everybody sitting at the table, not just the committee?
Did you still got video, Joe?
No.
Okay, because I got my hand up, so I'll speak.
Oh, go ahead.
And basically, I just first thing I wanted to know: did he mention any time frames for these 3-hour meetings?
Well, I'm assuming it's going to be in the morning, but it's going to be over Zoom. And it's gonna be about 3 hours, so.
Yeah, well, and I guess, so do you gotta know something now, or can we text him?
No, no, you can text him.
Well, I'd like to, I mean, a little bit of the time frame would help me decide which day, I guess. But
Okay,
I would just tell you, I mean, you know, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I'm pretty damn easy going about a lot of things, but I am a stickler about a few things as well. And there was a handful of meetings that I attended to that I wasn't a member of, and I sat by the sidewall. And, you know, there was always someone or two that said, ah, come on, come on, come on. Well, no, I didn't feel comfortable with that. As in my own committees as being chair, I think those that sit at the table should be members of the committee, and anybody else should sit at the side as a guest and should be called on when they raise their hand and recognized by the chair. I just think that's appropriate and nice.
yeah, but to go along with what you're saying, those of us who've been on the county board for a while know that it used to be the chair of that committee would tell you, he'll take questions, comments from the people that are not in the committee, or he won't. Do you remember that, Dave?
Yeah, I have. And I think as far as in the last, whatever, 3 or 4 or 5 years, I think everyone has been generous in allowing any board member to at least speak. But I just think you should give acknowledgement to that committee, let them be at the table, and you just speak once you've been recognized by the chair. I
And
just think that's appropriate.
that's
And
where-
I would do it for myself.
That's where I'm at on it. And I'm for letting the chairman of that committee, whether he's going to take questions from people that are not on that committee. That's, I think, is his prerogative or her prerogative. So that's where I'm at on it.
Well, and I would just add to that, Joe, because I've seen it over the last few years that every chair has been pretty generous about not letting non-committee members speak. And
Yeah.
if you didn't, it's just going to come up at board. So get it taken care of at committee. That's my thought.
I just don't like the confusion at the meetings when you don't know who's on the committee and you got one person dominating, then you find out they're not even on the committee. So to me, that's why the most important thing for me is to let the committee sit up there and let the other people sit in the peanut gallery. And whether they ask questions is up to the chairman of that committee. And I don't care one way or another whether they do or they don't, be honest with you. So that's what, and that is what the person that he talked to says also, that shouldn't have been going on. My second thing on that is I got a problem with people that are not in the committee showing up for closed sessions. I don't think that people on the board that are not in that committee should be in a closed session. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but that's where we had some problem of stuff getting leaked out last time.
I feel that, and I'll just add to that too, Joe. There was a time, it wasn't too long ago, there was a closed meeting and I was waiting in the hall until it was over and people are waving you in. And I said, no, I'm not on that committee, you know, and I think that's appropriate as well. I think from what I've seen go on in the last 3, 4, 5 years, I think we need to pull the reins in and be a little more professional and give courtesy to those other committees. And we have ran the board, the committees, and many other things very, very, very casual. And I think some professionalism and courtesy will go a long way.
Joe, I'm raising my hand. It's Angela Fellers.
I got back. I keep losing it, but go ahead, Angela.
I don't think it's ever a good idea to limit seats at the table. There are 20 districts in Winnebago County. We have 6 people, I believe, on each committee, which means that 14 districts aren't represented at that committee. And if there's something that's being discussed, whether it's an open session or a closed session, is directly impacting a district, that any elected board member who is elected by their constituents should be able to be recognized and speak at that meeting.
Well, I'm going to say that's your opinion. I disagree because I sat through the confusion of those meetings and we lost more than we ever gained by having that many people sitting at the table.
Well,
And those people can ask all the questions they want at the county board meeting.
Yeah.
but wouldn't it be better to have that chaos not be on the county board floor?
Oh, no, no, it's
but
much
it's
better
not
on the
chaos
county board floor.
Because you know, there is a perception that the county board has not, we have a public perception and a public trust issue with the county board. And the way that we fix that is to be radically transparent and to make sure that as many voices are at the table as is necessary. When we start, if we decide that the first thing we're going to double down on professionalism is to limit voices and representation in committee meetings, that seems disingenuous to having
That's
our
not
own.
Angela, we're not limiting, we're going back to the way it's supposed to be. We,
Joe-
Tim, go ahead.
Joe?
I said, because it sounds like we're not limiting voices, we're just limiting where people sit at during the meetings.
Correct.
Am I correct?
That is correct.
So you
They
have
can
an
be
opportunity
called
to
on,
listen.
they
and
just have
speak.
to
It's
be
just-
by the chairman of that committee.
Right.
A lot of our confusion was when we would have joint
Right.
caucus meetings. And so the meeting would start as a joint caucus and we'd have 20 people there. But each chair said, it just went from chair to chair to chair to chair. No one ever got up and left, except to Sony. He was a smart one. And I like to go to those meetings. I like to sit at the wall and listen so that I have a better idea of what they're talking about. But you're absolutely right. When it's an individual meeting, it's just like these Zoom meetings. We're going from one meeting to the next meeting to the next meeting, and we don't get off. But at least on Zoom, we're not sitting at the table. You're calling your members of that committee. You're showing the members on screen. If I want to make a comment and I'm not on that committee, I have to ask the chair for permission to speak. And that's the way, that's the easiest way of doing it. But our big confusion was, I think the biggest confusion was when we had joint caucus meetings and everybody stayed.
Well, you're right, Angie, it was, but overall it was confusing because, and the trouble is people were dominating the committee. There was people that were on that actual committee couldn't even get a question answered. And
That's right.
And that is what my biggest problem is. And if you remember right, we got stuff was being released to the newspaper from closed sessions, and that had to come out of those meetings also.
We had a lot of things leaked to the newspaper from those sessions. You're absolutely right.
All right, so Dan, you're next. I got the Fellers combination. Dan, you're first.
Yeah, I mean, look, I just remind everyone that this is a parliamentary discussion, right, about the proper operating procedure for committee meetings, and we, in this case, look towards the way, state governments or other, run these, right? You have the committee members, and those are the ones that ask questions and debate items, and other members can sit there and watch. I mean, if it's always the chairman of the committee's purview if they want to allow other discussion. But the challenge, look, I think the challenge is we run the risk of, what's the point of having committee meetings if all 20 board members show up? Right?
Mhm.
Then, then it goes on there. There's got to be a level of organization. You have to be able to trust your committees to send things to the board for full debate, right? And we, in the last 4 years, there's been a lot of lively debate on things that come out of committee relatively straightforward, in a relatively straightforward manner. But what I would recommend, Joe, is that, work is that you set the rules and put it in an ordinance, right? So that every committee operates the same, right? So public safety operates the same way as personnel and policies, so that personnel and policies runs the same way as operations, so that it isn't a level of confusion where, well, this chairman's okay, like letting other people kind of in and get involved in the conversation. This chairman isn't, have that consistency. So it's the same from one to the other. And this is a parliamentary issue, sort of not what the level of discussion is,
Right.
Because that's what the board meeting is for.
Yeah, and I think that when we have this training, I already know what the issue was, the way we were doing it, that wasn't the way we should have been doing it. Whether the chairman has the right to allow somebody to speak is a whole nother issue. I don't care one way or another on that one, but I see what you're saying. I don't
Just make it consistent, right? Just like literally make it consistent so that, everyone's operating under the same rules.
Yeah, it wasn't consistent when I came on. That doesn't mean it was right, but you're right. When I was on, it wasn't consistent. But we can, we'll work through this parliamentary and let the expert tell us, should we be doing these things? So those are the three issues. Are we going to allow everybody to sit at a table? Are we going to allow everybody to ask questions? And are we going to allow everybody to be there at closed sessions? Those are the three things I want answered in this training. Because those are the things that I found problems with in this last year, especially this last year. So anyway, those will be up for discussion. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Joe. Just as you said those about closed session, and this is just the way how I feel, and however anybody else feels, that's all fine with me. No other board members should sit at the table. They should only be allowed questions when called upon, and I would think all chairmen of committees should do that. And no, they shouldn't be part of closed session.
All right, Angela, go ahead.
Okay, this is wholly inconsistent with the discussion that we had last week at the caucus when we were told, or when I was told, that I wouldn't have to worry about how committees were assigned, that we weren't going to clear committees and assign committees according to people's passions or according to their job experience, that we were just going to fit people in where they could and to not worry about it, because you could then attend any other meeting and speak at any other meeting.
You can attend the meeting. It's an open meeting.
Yeah, every one of the public, including yourself.
But I can't speak. I can just go sit in the corner.
You may be able to speak if the chairman of that committee says, and if that's what they want to do, yeah.
And if that's not what they want to do?
Well,
and I would say,
no, we'll see what the training says. But I think it should be up to the chairman of that committee. That's his committee. That's his.
I think that we were elected by our constituents to make these decisions, not to farm it out to someone who's going to give us a Zoom meeting on Robert's rules.
You know, this is why we get problems. You're making assumptions. It's not being farmed out to anybody. We're the ones that are going to be at this training. We're the ones that ultimately make the decision based on what this person tells us is the normal, or if that's how the rules go. So once we just learn that, then we'll make our decision.
And Joe, if I could add to that, I don't think board members are exempt from signing up for public participation.
No.
If you want to guarantee 3 minutes to speak, because maybe, and like I say, if we put it in language in the ordinance, hey, if you put it in language and it's an ordinance that the chair will acknowledge any other board member to speak, then that's the way it should be, and that's all fine. But I don't think there's not one person on this board, future, past, or present, that can go to every committee meeting and speak knowledgeably at every committee meeting and have quality input. I mean, I've seen it.
I'm not suggesting that would be the case, Mr. Sansoni. What I'm suggesting is that there are people, me included, who would like to be on committees that match our passions, our job experience, and our personal experience, and the needs of our district, that are not on those committees, that can speak with authority and can speak with expertise. And so I'm not suggesting that every committee be 20 people, but if the way that we're going to choose committees is just, oh, this is the way we've always done it, and we'll just slip people in where there's an opening, then we should let people participate at the level that their constituents expect for their representation.
Well, I'll just have to say to this, if that was your expectations, you're going to be very disappointed and let down.
I'm going to say this, Angela. I myself have been trying hard to fill what you want, but you're putting yourself a little high on a throne there. To me, you think you know more than everybody else here. Is that what's going on?
No, excuse me, Chairman. That was very disrespectful.
I don't think it's disrespectful. I'm telling you, I'm trying to help you, and then you're sitting there saying that you want to be able to. I don't mind you being involved, don't get me wrong, but you're acting like you're being denied a position when we haven't. I'm not denying you, I just can't get one yet.
I'm not acting as though I'm being denied a position. I'm literally being told in the caucus meeting that according to a parliamentary procedure that I'm not allowed to participate in a committee meeting.
You're not being told that. You're being told that's up to the chairman of that committee. And I agree with what somebody said. I believe most chairmen will allow that. But there's got to be some kind of procedure other than people sitting at the table and kind of shoving the real members of that committee out of the conversation. And that's what we were there for that. I was.
Have members.
Pardon me?
That was the case. Why would we have members on each committee that?
Right.
you know, if you don't like the committee, perhaps you can trade off with someone else. It's hard when new people come in. It's kind of hard. If you know, that's why we sometimes will start them out in the positions of the person who has left, just so they get in there and get a feel of it. And within a year, you talk to the caucus chairman or you talk to someone that doesn't like the committee they are, and maybe you can trade with them.
My
You know,
issue is-
Tim, when you walked in, how many committees were you put on?
They only put me on economic development and zoning.
And then what happened?
Everyone gets zoning their first time, right?
Yeah,
Because you got to learn zoning.
I want to clarify that my issue isn't with my placement. My issue is being told that I can't do extra work if I want to volunteer for it.
Nobody's telling you that, Angela. Nobody is telling you you can't go to the meetings. And I'm not saying you can't ask a question because I don't know yet if you can or not. So that's where we're at. And then when you get to the county board, believe me, you can ask all the questions you want. So there's a way we do things. That's all. And when we get through with this training, we'll find out what they're saying, if we're doing things right or not. I don't believe we are. And I don't think from what Mr. Arena asked the woman about this, she didn't think we were either. So that's all I'm saying. We're working. Nobody's trying to keep you from having your say. Mr. DeSoto.
Joe, I'd just like to add to that. I know you mentioned it generically, that once you get to the board, you can ask all the questions you want. No, you can't. You can only speak when you're acknowledged by the chairman.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
And then,
Hey, here.
you know, sometimes your hands are tied there as well. So, I mean, just because you're a board member doesn't mean you've got all these privileges. You still have to abide by the rules.
Bert?
Yeah, thanks. Also, our rules state that a board member can only speak for 3 minutes and only given 3 times to speak on a single topic too, but we never stick to that either. So there are some things in our board meetings, you know, that maybe we should do better differently. You know, we have been back and forth on issues where people have 5-10 times to speak, it seems like, and the discussion goes on forever. So some of these rules were put into place so that a discussion can be curtailed down to a minimum amount of time, but still have the board members plead their case and speak about what they want to speak about. But, you know, we have to, if you're going to look at all those rules and figure out what rules we're going to follow, which ones we're not, that's where this discussion comes into play. So, you know, I think it's a great discussion, but I also think at committee meetings, it should be limited to the committee members, and other members present can ask questions. If you're a member of the public and not a member of the body, you could sign up for the public comment session. But that doesn't entail you to induce a debate. It just gives you 3 minutes to speak your mind. So there is a role in public participation. There is a role in the county board participation. So if we can define that and come to an agreement, I think we're better off than where we were, just so that we do have structure behind what we do.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going for. I want to just get it so we have an actual procedure how we're going to go, and not just make it up on the run. And whether that I'm not going to be any chair of any committee, so I don't really care how they do it. I just want to make sure we have something to say. We can do it that way, or we can't do it that way. So, but I don't want everybody sitting at the table. That to me is unfair to those committee members that have worked on this stuff. So, and yes, go ahead, Angie.
No, finish what you're saying.
I was just going to say that's what we're going to find out from this person that Paula set up to do the training. And even if you don't attend the training, somehow we'll find out from her what people do, how do most committees work, how do most boards work. That's how we should do. We should be making up our own stuff. It didn't work very well last time. I don't know if some of you think it did, but I didn't think it worked very well the last year. So
it hasn't worked very well for the last 4 years. The thing is, how many of you, when you started, did you get a booklet on what all the committees were how they operated and what they did, what the a position of a board member? What's the position of the chairman? Did any of you get those books? Did any of you go through with, at that time, I went through it with the administrator who explained to me about each committee, what they were, what they did, and their purpose, and how they were, and mostly their purpose. But also, it was rules for us board members. There was rules in there for the chairman. Do any of you have that book?
Angie, this is Dorothy. I remember that, but that was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago, and perhaps we need to bring that book out again. I still have mine, and perhaps we need to bring that to our administrator, and those things should be talked about with each, as a group also, that we go through that so we all know what our positions are and how they are to be handled. We also, at that time, Dorothy, I think they had even the department heads come and talk to us and tell us what the job for each department was and what their procedures were. And in that booklet, it even described their procedures and their duties.
Well, I think you're right on that, but we're going to have an expert tell us. So
you're telling me that's
we're going to have to actually tell us how we should be, what are the rules.
Yeah, but that's parliamentary.
Okay.
That's the other.
Okay. I think we spent enough time on this. I have a question for Jill.
Yeah.
In the past, maybe a few years back, the HR department used to do a training on cultural diversity or something of that nature. We have not had that in a long time. Can you talk with Paul about that to see if we can bring that back, please?
Yeah, Tim, you want to get on that?
I would say why Paul, but the other problem is we haven't had an HR department in forever either.
Well, I don't know. Did we ever replace anybody in HR?
Not yet.
Working on it.
Never did get that.
Well, this was before the one that's suing us. She decided she did not want to do it, so it never happened.
Well, yeah. Dave.
Thank you, Chairman. Oh, just to get this, because everybody talking and doing things. Back when Chairman Christensen was in there, and like I say, I mean, I'm talking 8, 10, 12 years ago. When a new board member came to the board, say there was 3 or 4 newly electeds, there was a time set aside that there was an orientation, that you were given a tour of the jail, the courthouse, the clerks. You were introduced to people. You were showed where different rooms are, your mailbox and things. You were given a handout and a handbook, and there was opportunity to, be explained to as far as what the various committees would do. We used to have annual board member retreats where we'd spend most of the day talking about everything under the sun. And I'll just tell you, since this current chairman has been in place and he's went through 3 or 4 different, between Carla, between Julia, between Amanda, between Dave Peterson going, between Steve leaving and coming back, it has been absolutely defunct and inefficient and needs a lot of improvement. And hopefully with a new chairman that comes in, these things can all be brought up and we can bring up what the good things were, the bad things were, make some policy changes and move in a more positive direction. But it's, for myself, been miserable and heart-wrenching and gives me a stomach ache most times the way the current administration, and when I say that, I mean the chairman, has put us to where we are today. Thank you.
I'm going to say that, and just to sum it up, none of this, Angela, has to do with trying to silence the county board members. I'm sorry you took it that way, but that is not what we're talking about. I'm talking about just trying to get things in order so that there's not just chaos every time. Like on Thursday nights, we'd have like 4 meetings lined up and it was just chaos. And then we had stuff missing from meetings and stuff being given to the paper. So all I'm saying is let's get this in order. Nobody's trying to shut up anybody from talking. We need all the voices we can get in these meetings. So don't worry, you will have plenty of time to say stuff. I promise you that. I'm going to go to the last thing. when I talked to Paul Arena, it was the vice chair duties. He wants to set up a standard for what are the vice chair's duties and how to select them. My idea was that the chairman of the committee has always picked the vice chair, at least in recent time. Is that true? Is that how you guys remember it?
Yes, that's how I got picked as a vice chair.
And I also told him that I thought it doesn't have to be because there's no rule for it. But I would like the chairman, if the chairman is the Republican, I would like to see them pick a Democrat if they can, one that's qualified to be the vice chair. That's what we've done the last few years. Mr. Boomer was very good at that. I believe Dorothy's a vice chair, Angie's a vice chair. I was a vice chair under Gary when he was there. So I think that's what we should shoot for if possible, is to have if the chair is one party, the vice chair should try to make that person of the other party if possible. I told Paul I understand that there's a limited number of Democrats, so it might not work that way, but that's what my goal would be with him, and suggest him that, and if that person is qualified to be the vice chair of that committee.
How do you determine who qualifies?
Well, I think we all know each other and the committees you've been on. Like, for instance, if I was Mr. Stoney wasn't the chair and there was a chairman of that committee who said, well, Dave has a lot of background in that, been on that committee, he'd be a logical person to be the vice chair.
Okay.
I think that person has some time under the belt, not just.
Okay.
I don't want any buddy systems in this. Dan, go ahead.
Just
Dan.
remember, being in the minority party on the board, having a Democrat as vice chair occasionally gives us the opportunity to do things that we'd otherwise not be able to do. If you remember, go back to our legal whatever subcommittee, which which Gene was the chair on and I was the vice chair. One day when Gene was absent, we were able to modify one of our statements of work for the for our representative down in Springfield, our lobbyist, and excluded some of the language that was from Rounder's turnaround agenda. If you guys remember that 2-3 years ago, they tried to get the lobbyist to push the turnaround agenda within, with his duties as it pertained to the county. We were able to get that removed, sort of from the operating statement because a Democrat was, chair for the day, and we had enough votes to get that done. So, I mean, these things aren't just like who runs the meetings, there are important things that can happen and can get done. So don't forget those.
And I agree with you, Dan. And not only that, I think the vice chair, regardless of party, has the ear of the chairman a lot. At least that's my experience on this board. That I worked with Gary. I don't know who else. I know Dorothy has worked with who was you the vice chair with?
Economic development.
Yeah, Fred, right?
Right.
Yeah, so he had Fred picked you right that day, right? That he got picked. So we've had a lot of cooperation in that area. So I just want to continue with that one and try to keep, we have to work together with the parties. We can't do this, they can do it alone, but we can't do it alone. So we have to work with the parties, and hopefully we can keep that work going that way. Does anybody have any objection to that thought process? So that's what I'm going to try to get through to Paul. And I understand there's probably going to be some committees that doesn't happen since we have a limited number of Democrats. But also, I'm going to meet with him and try to work on these committees some more. So I'm still working on them. So we'll see. Tim, I got you penciled in where you want for the time being. So I know you really wanted that. So I got you penciled in tentatively for that one, and then I think that one will go. If anybody else, I know Angela what you want, so I already talked to you. Is there anybody else that wanted? I don't know if the P&P committee is going to be there. I don't know if that's going to stay or not. So that's going to make a big difference too. And I've already conveyed to Paul that there's several people that do want it to stay, but I don't know where what's going to happen with that. So does anybody else have any questions? Go ahead, Bert.
Thanks, Joe. I don't have a question, but the actual FOP contract is in our agenda packet. So I don't know if Mr. Fellers can email that over to Mrs. Fellers and she can have a copy of that.
Which
So the
packet?
whole contract is in there.
Oh, it's in the whole contract's in the packet?
The FOP contract is in our packet for tomorrow night. Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Angela, I'll forward you the tomorrow night's committee meeting packet
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
right now.
Okay. Is there anything else for anybody?
I'll just leave with one thing, Joe, if we're about to adjourn.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to say it's been an absolute pleasure working with all of you. This has been an amazing 4 years. I wouldn't trade it for anything. You guys are all fantastic people. I'm going to miss this, and I'm not. And, just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to serve. So from our last Dem Caucus, thank you so much, guys.
And Dan, I'm going to tell you, and you won't believe this, but I'm going to miss you. Old 1 or 2 Ice Cube, it all depended on how the day was.
Yeah, well, once those bars open back up and it's safe to go out because we're all vaccinated or we all got antibodies, we'll make sure we get together for one.
I'll make sure I get you a real nice rail bourbon.
Yeah, all right.
Stay in touch a little while, Dan.
Not a problem, man. You know I will.
Okay. All right. Angela, can you call me when we get done here?
Yes, I'll call you.
Oh, you didn't sound happy about that, but okay.
Oh, no, I just. I'll
There
call
you
you,
go.
Joe.
Now you're smiling. Wow.
Fast learner, Joe.
Wow, man. Dan, can you call? No. Either way, I want to get a call from the fellers, okay?
Oh, I gotta go cook dinner.
I get a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion.
Second.
Fellers and Mr. Neighbors, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Angela, give me a call. Bye-bye.
Everybody, happy Thanksgiving.
Yes,
Yeah, we'll
happy
talk to you
Thanksgiving,
tomorrow.
everybody. Stay
For
safe.
where you are. Be safe is right. Good night.
Good
Good
night,
night.
everybody.